Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2026 Candidates Tournament, the winner of which will go on to face the world champion later this year. This has been a wild few weeks of chess. In the open, amongst the 8 gentlemen participating, Javakhir Sandarov from Uzbekistan has put on a historic performance, and today he is facing Anish Giri. The situation is as follows. For there to be a playoff in this tournament, Anish Giri needs to win today and tomorrow, and Sandarov needs to lose today and tomorrow. The odds of that happening, I've seen online, are something like 0.5%, which is, it's not zero. So I will be showing you what happens there, and if a champion is crowned, and maybe by the title of the video, we already know if a champion has been crowned. I don't know, you tell me. But amongst the women, it is going to go down to tomorrow, April 15th. Going to be super intense. And we will have an epic conclusion there. I do just want to let you know, I was talking about this at the beginning of the recaps. My next book, you can still get a signed copy. There's like 100 left. They reopened it because of popular demand. Folks reaching out, they didn't get it in the first wave of the pre-orders. So it will be in the top link of the description. And if you miss out, you miss out. So please do check it out. Now, here we go. Round 13 out of 14. It is crunch time. Anish Giri has to win. Anish Giri opens with the queen's pawn, which I was kind of surprised by. I mean, he is a more d4 player, but like I thought e4 would be the move. He predicts Sandarov's opening, so Sandarov plays the queen's gambit declined. Somebody should do a breakdown, but it felt like 80% of the games in this tournament were queen's gambit declines. I don't know why the boys just never went into e4. There was some very sparing e4s. We have an exchange queen's gambit declined with bishop to f4, and this is one of the most common ways to play it. Historically, black has put the pawn more passively on c6. Instead, here, Javakhir plays c5, which we have also seen throughout this tournament. Knight e2, knight c6, and castles. And here, generally, black has been taking this pawn or developing this bishop, and then white is taking here, and that is the path that Sandarov chooses. Both guys clearly familiar with the opening. Anish Giri obviously went into this exact position and was like, I'm going to play this for a win against Sandarov. And Sandarov went d4. d4 is the most emphatic way of solving your problems. White goes e4. And now, after the next move, the player started to think. Sandarov went rook to e8, simply improving the rook. Now, visually speaking, white does look to have some good things going. If white can play, for instance, 3 moves in a row, a3, stopping knight to b4, bishop d2, 4 moves in a row, actually, and then something like f4, this setup for white is positionally winning. It's completely winning. Why? Dominant center control and nice ideas of playing pawn to e5 and starting a kingside attack. No counterplay on the queen side, including the move b4, which can kick out the position. Black has no forward mobility with any of the knights, any of the bishops, nothing. The problem is white does not have time to play a3, bishop d2, f4, knight g3. Shocking. Shocking. He does not have time to play 4 moves in a row. Sandarov immediately creates counterplay against this, which is why Anish plays knight to g3. And after knight to d7, Anish is still going for his setup. But after knight e5, white now cannot play the move bishop to d2 because his bishop would be taken. So Sandarov gets a very dynamic way of counterplay, putting his knights in the middle. Anish takes, plays f4, and is like, all right, I'm going to chuck 2 bishops, and this is what we have to work with. The problem is this is absolutely nothing to work with. This is a microscopic difference in what could arise from an opening, and it's kind of a position that you're going to grind and massage. They've tried this during this tournament against Sandarov, and it has not worked. And it doesn't work in this game either, because Sandarov plays queen b6, very instructive move. He does not go on the roller coaster ride of taking this pawn. He voluntarily damages his pawn structure and trades the queens, but it's a very practical decision because white simply doesn't have enough pieces to pose legitimate problems. Sandarov is now going to either put his rook on D or C. He's going to create counterplay with the move f6 at some moment. And white has nothing. White has absolutely nothing. Anish Giri, in this game, I think the biggest advantage he had was something like a 0.3. Sandarov surrounded the pawn. And before you knew it, this was the position. And this is not a position that you are going to beat Sandarov in. Maybe Anish Giri would beat me in this position with white, but I'm not at the candidates. I am merely talking about it. Folks, that's it. I mean, this game went on for way longer than it needed to. Black has doubled A pawns, but it really makes no difference They are untouchable, and it takes some 50 moves in this game, but Sindarov freezes the Nisha's king. White can make progress, but he'll never be able to move his rook because black's not going to put his king anywhere it can be checked. And after 55, 56, 57, 58 moves, the 13th round ended, and Sindarov, with 9.5 out of 13, is now uncatchable by any of the other participants of the tournament, and with a round to spare, really with 2 rounds to spare, really with like the entire second half of the freaking tournament to spare, is your 2026 Candidates Champion, with undoubtedly the most dominant performance in this format's history, which is not very long. It's been like 14 years. Nepo won the previous candidates, I believe, with 9.5 points out of 14, so Sindarov still has a chance to break it and score double digits. One of the most dominant performances of all time, one of the most unprecedented tournament performances of all time. He was not a pre-tournament favorite, so to speak, but in my tier list, go back and check my video of the candidates. I did say if he won this tournament, it would not be shocking, and it's not shocking. He's up to 27-70 in the world. He's nearly overtaking Nodirbek Abdulsatorov as the number 4 player in the world. Low-key insane. There's just an Uzbek in number 4 and number 5. He is here. He is now incredible. Not much else you can say. Slightly disappointing from Anish Giri, but I also said this in my tier list. Like, Anish is going to have a good tournament, maybe, but when you got it, you know, he's not going to go insane in the last round or the penultimate. So he's still going for second, obviously. Yeah, I mean, what can you say? This was a tournament of Sindarov and everybody else. Now, the recap's not over. The recap's not over. I will be speeding through some of these games because they're a little bit sad as just, you know, just as a person who is rooting for a close tournament. This was a very interesting game between Caruana and Prague. A lot of pressure is off now, so you can sort of just play chess. They play an insanely dynamic position. This looks like something I play in my bullet games. Very, you know, black establishes the dominant knight outpost in the middle of the board. Fabi voluntarily gave up the bishop because he wanted to create an attack. Knight c4, nice move, trying to go for the d6 pawn. Prague sacrificed the pawn, then he trapped his bishop, but Fabi opened up the position and played f takes g3. I mean, this looked breathtaking, like you're getting g6 and rook f7. It looks like black should just resign in a moment. Rook f7 here is winning. You need to give up the rook and the knight for the queen, and apparently white has a big advantage. Fabi instead chooses to go this way, where he doesn't have to give up as much material. No, he does. But the position is slightly different than it would have been in the other version. Knight to f6, and now Fabi, I mean, just absolutely amazing. Look at this, just throwing all the pawns forward. Actually, a riveting game of chess that is utterly meaningless as it, you know, pertains to the tournament. Fabi much better still. Queen a4, king d8. Prague looking for some sort of defensive fortress. Kind of a miracle that his king is not mated. And somehow on the 40th move, Fabi goes here, and that's wrong. Fabi needed to play the move g4 here, because g4 would have prevented black from taking on g4, because you would have played queen h5 and you would have won the rook. But after Fabi did this, after rook g3, the game is just a draw, because you're simply going to lose the g2 pawn, and this is a draw. They agreed to a draw because what'll happen here is king b8, the king will go here, black will take, and neither side can make any more progress. The rook and bishop will not beat the queen, and the queen will not beat the rook and bishop. So Fabi had a winning position, actually a very dynamic game, but doesn't finish the job. Hikaru Blue Bomb was probably the most predictable result in quite some time. Another Queen's Gambit exchange. It was a decline. I mean, kind of an exchange. You traded on d5. Actually, Blue Bomb played fantastic from the opening. He had a very, very pleasant position. Hikaru tried to break things open in the middle, but then this reminds me of the Giri game that Blue Bomb played, where he just blocked the position, and that was the game. Yeah, man, Blue Bomb is super chilling, man. He's got 6 points. You get 5,000 euros for every half a point you score. That's 12 half a points. Yo, bro he making that money. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, very chill performance, and he's in the middle of the pack along with everybody. Totally didn't underperform. This was a very interesting game, which again, unfortunately, is just meaningless in the tournament standings. It was a Petrov with c4. This is like the 7th different way that they have tried to play against the Petrov in this tournament. I think that they have played knight d3, knight c4, like every single possible iteration of moves. And then white played king f1, which was very dynamic and, you know, violated the opening principles. And then he attacked Yesipenko throughout the game with c4. This is, again, typical Wei Yi. Just a shame it's round 13. It's round 13, and the boys are ready to go back to their home nations. I mean, king h2, This is insane stuff. Yesipenko went totally ballistic, sacrificed material, hunted down the king, queen to d4, but excellent defending from Wei Yi. He's up the piece. He needs to stabilize the position. And again, to respect the women who are actually competing for first place. Here was a very funny sequence of moves. Wei Yi had 6 minutes here, so he literally repeated the position like 10 times. Not literally, but basically literally. He just repeated the position over and over and over to make it to the 40th move of the game. And once they crossed the 40th move, he picked up Yesipenko's pawn. And I think Andrei has basically just had enough. He resigned. He's in last. Only by a point, though. Prague only has 5.5 points. And yeah, Sandarov wins. We don't even need to cover these games tomorrow, but if Sandarov can get to 10.5, that would be really wild. But if the games are done in half an hour, that would be hilarious. Now we need to go to the tournament, which really is going to be exciting tomorrow because there are 4 people that can still win this thing. Bibisara versus Anna Muzychuk. Hey, there's a lot of coverage now on social media of Bibisara and Javahir. I'm not a gossip channel, but seems to be confirmed that they are a couple. And if they can both win the candidates, one of the most incredible stories in chess. Like, we have Prague and Vaishali. Everybody talks about the siblings. Like, that's incredible. I don't think we've ever had a couple at like the ultra elite level. Bibisara is half a point behind first place, and she's playing her most important matchup, the person tied with her. So if she can throw Muzychuk down into the rankings and compete for first, that will be massive. She will knock somebody out. She goes for a scotch. And here, Queen E2 is a sideline. I mean, generally nowadays, E5 is an automatic move. There are Bishop D3 and Knight D2. This is a major sideline here. Black has many options. She goes Queen E7, which I don't think is the most accurate. Queen E7 and then D5 is trying to solve the matters now, like very, emphatically solve the problems. We immediately enter a queenless middle game where white has a better structure. And here trades. And yeah, Muzychuk spent nearly 20 minutes here because neither move is nice. If you go here, you won't castle. And if you go here, your pawns are going to be terrible forever. And actually, you almost lose after Bishop A6. Like, there's some insane lines where your pieces just get completely beaten up. So she went here voluntarily, entered an endgame. Rook E1 was a very fancy move, which maybe she even, I don't think she overlooked it. She probably felt like this was coming. And now you enter this opposite colored bishop endgame, which is just, you're a pawn down and you're miserable. An engine will draw this with black effortlessly against the human, but an engine is literally 1,000 points higher rated. It's like 3,700 FIDE, right? So she goes here, which apparently is wrong. Apparently you got to be a little bit more patient with the pawns because now she's not going to get the optimal setup with Rook E8 and G6. The computer wanted black to play Rook E8, G6, H5, and those types of pawn spikes will prevent white from getting in. Bibisara, though, puts on the pressure. B4, B5, very tough position for black to play. This is unpleasant, but apparently equal. Apparently holdable. But this is getting more and more challenging for black as white is threatening every single pawn. And if you push them, I'm going to get in with my king. The bishop can't even touch these pawns. So it's going to be very difficult for Muzychuk to practically hold this position. And it's not going to be difficult. It's going to be literally impossible because she goes down. She goes down. Maybe there was a way that she could have defended against the infiltration, but Bibisara created problems in the middle, on the queen side, and on the king side. And black just cannot defend against pawns that are so far apart. Absolutely ice in the veins performance from the Kazakh superstar. And she is now at 7.5 and awaits what will happen between Jiner and her opponent Goryachkina and Vaishali and her opponent Tan Zhongyi. Who will play the role of spoiler in this tournament? Because she cannot catch the leaders. It would be not possible. But she has already brought everybody down. She actually had a resurgence after, dropping to her lowest point in the tournament. So Tan Zhongyi versus Vaishali. A Queen's Gambit decline, but then a capture, so not really a decline, sort of an accepted transposition. Vaishali plays a very forcing line where she tries to get a double-edged game, but also kind of tries to clarify things early into a position where she might not have any problems. But problems she's going to have because the reason you put the knight on b6 is really to take the bishop on c4 and transform the position like that. But she never did that. She obviously didn't like something and ended up having to go back to d7, and white had the bishop pair here. The bishop on c4 was just amazing, pressured the position quite a bit, and the biggest moment in this game came right here, where Tan Zhongyi could have taken this pawn and then brought the queen exactly back to its home square, and the game plan would have been take here and like a4. And black would have had to create very fast counterplay to stop this. Like, black would have had to attack with the h-pawn, because if black does nothing, yeah, white's just going to win. Like, there is no stopping this pawn. But when you're having a bad tournament, you don't fully trust your judgment. You don't fully trust that you're evaluating danger correctly. She didn't take the pawn. And now, when Vaishali's knight is here, it's too late to take the pawn. Literally, this one move. Actually, literally, because then the knight is right here. And now white can't take the pawn, and the players are forced to repeat the position, because black is just creating threats on f2, and with white, if you play rook e2, that doesn't even stop anything. I take, and rook d1 check. So Vaishali's knight comes alive. There was one moment in this game, had Tan Zhongyi taken this pawn, Vaishali could have lost this game, but she draws. So she's tied with Bibisara, which means that this now becomes the most important game of the round. Can Jiner defeat Goryachkina and will lead the tournament on her own with 8 out of 13? All right, here we go. Bishop to c4, knight to f6, d3, h6, c3, bishop c5. Very chill, nice little Italian. Bishop e7. All right, we have a4, d5, striking back in the middle of the board. Open Italian, not like the d6 lines. Takes. And these positions are very fascinating. They all take different turns. You know, sometimes white attacks here and pressures the queen side and whatnot. But okay, we have a rookless position now, knight to a5. And I gotta tell you, I like the way this looks for white, but I also like the way this looks for black. Goryachkina voluntarily entering this position where you attack the knight, and then you take it, and then you take this pawn. I mean, this is a pawn sacrifice. Black is giving up a pawn. But in return, she is getting the bishop pair, the dark square and the light squared bishop, which can be used to attack the white structure. You might break apart the structure with your pawns over here. You might put the bishop on the long diagonal and have a very nice control. I mean, visually, it's not so simple for white to play this. So, bishop to c3, b6, trade, and knight e5. Now, you did not need to make this trade. I think she made that trade because she thought that pawn's weak. I'm going to get to it very fast with all my pieces. And remember, she's also okay with a draw. Like, she doesn't have to go crazy just yet. But she could have just taken, but she does this. And now after knight c6, queen h4, suddenly white doesn't have as much time to take this as maybe previously thought. You have to defend against mate. You still cannot take this pawn, as, you know, easy as it looks, because after bishop h3 and rook to e1, you are forked. So white now cannot take the pawn at all. There's no way to take this pawn. So what are you going to do? You play knight d2, and now you're like really not going to be able to take that pawn, because if you take the bishop, my pawn becomes a passed b pawn. So okay, knight e4. As this game is progressing, you start to get the sense that, like, yo, maybe this pawn's going to be a real problem, because if black pushes that pawn, how does white actually stop that? Like a4, a3, a2, just like the Tan Zhongyi game, right? But okay, the position is still equal. So queen e2, she's offering a queen trade. Queen b2, queen c1, queen e2, queen e3, queen b2. And this position with queen b2, right, this occurs once. Now this is the first time. That's the second time. And right now, Jiner, in the candidates, can pause the clock and claim a draw. Now, I think this was also the same exact situation earlier in the tournament against Divya Deshmukh. If I am lying and I am mixing that up, sometimes you have to go on the fly here. I'm pretty sure this already happened once in the tournament. Maybe it was against Bibisara. But I swear she could have paused the clock and made a draw. She doesn't. She actually continues the game. And Goryachkina now thinks for 24 minutes, because she was like, wait a minute, what? Like, I thought we were just making a draw. No, she's playing for a win, and she's in the right. She's a pawn up, but the knight goes to c5. Takes. And she is totally justified, because very quickly, she gets a great blockade. Black's attack is not really anywhere. Okay, there's some threads, but you bring the queen back, and you are just going to win this pawn likely and go on to win, but not so fast. Hold on, you can't get off the back rank just yet. Rook d1, a4. It's a little scary, but she's doing a nice job. She's threatening the queen trade. Rook d3, she's kicking out the queen. She's threatening the queen trade. Now queen c1 is the best move. She goes g4. Queen c1 here was the best move, a little bit mysterious, but it prevents the pawn from going to a3. g4, queen b2. She again has a pretty big advantage. Queen d1. Goryachkina is looking to find her way. The position is still a little bit spicy, but it's annoying, that queen and that pawn that just won't go away. Now she's trying to open up the black king to create an attack. Black doesn't want to open up the king. And queen c2 check, and white has kind of lost the path here. You did all of this. You pushed the g-pawn, the g4, the g5, the g6. But where's the end to this? Queen a2, but the pawn is still there. King f2. The pawn is now 2 squares away from queening. I'm getting a little bit nervous. Queen e7. Rook e4, queen b4. You can maybe still make a draw. I mean, Goryachkina is kind of still offering a draw with this maneuver. White still doesn't take the draw. And now she goes here. And there is a problem with this move. And it is the very nice king h8. And now you are permanently off of the diagonal and out of the danger. And kind of insane, because after rook f6 and rook g6, black is winning. White overextended the king, apparently. This pawn survived, so white had to play defense. And this game ends within a matter of like 7 moves. Bishop d7 back. And the illusion of control for white is finished. Queen f2, you win this pawn. Queen f6. And black literally wins the game because of the a-pawn. Because if you take it, queen c3, queen f3, and rook f3, and it's game over. The entire game, this was a 57-move game. And on the 17th move, she made this trade. And there might be no greater regret in her entire tournament, because that a-pawn haunted her the rest of the game. She never got rid of it. I never seen something like this, where one pawn for 40 moves was simply protected and not allowed to touch, be touched by any piece. And white also rejected her repetition. So she now, look at the standings, 7.5. 7.5, but she only has 7. She could have had 8, but she could have had 7.5. It was right there on the board. Insanity. Now, Lachno and Divya, this one's tough. Divya playing a Caro Kann defense, and white playing a bit of a sideline with this fianchetto. This is not something that normally happens. Both these players are kind of out of the running. Well, no, I mean, they're completely out of the running, but you can still kind of be in the running to have a good tournament. But yeah, this one was not, Divya here, she can't even take this piece because rook e8. Yeah, you can tell Divya is a bit checked out, and I think it's because she had a rough final stretch. She's lost 4 out of her last 5, and Lachno wins, but Lachno now has 6.5, and there's just no way. I don't think there's a way. I mean, both 7.5s have to lose, and the 7 has to not. Maybe Lachno can technically tie for first, but let's take a look at the standings. I think Lachno's chances are insanely low. In the next round, Anna Muzychuk with 6.5 plays Jiner. So someone in that matchup will have 7.5 or 8, right? For sure. Lachno plays Vaishali, so that's a massive matchup. 7.5, 6.5. Yeah, and Bibisara could theoretically lose. So if Bibisara loses and Vaishali loses and Jiner loses or draws, there's going to be a big tie of 7.5 pointers. So we might have a tie break tomorrow. Going to be utterly insane. If Bibisara wins and Vaishali wins, they would have a tie break. If one of them wins and the other doesn't, they win the tournament. Vaishali probably is in best position. White pieces, final round, leading the tournament. But Bibisara is playing a person who is on tilt. She is playing the last place individual, which, it depends. Like, does Divya want to spoil the tournament? And with white, it's unclear. You could also, with white, you can play possum. You could play very safe and try not to lose, and then the person with black has to attack you. So, yeah, congratulations once again to Sindara, folks. If you want to get the last 100 or 200 copies of the signed pre-order, link is in the description. And tomorrow we crown the women's champ, and this is going to be epic. because 6 different people, likely it's going to end up about 4. Yeah, and Goryachkina could also tie for first. Wow. Insane. All right. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.